Engine failures.
Crowd are on their feet outside the window here, Crofty. What are they looking at down there into turn one?
It's Lewis Hamilton. There's a fire at the back of that Mercedes car. His engine has blown, and his chances of winning the Malaysia Grand Prix with it.
Oh no, no!
Brake failures.
We have an issue on the left-hand side, rear left.
Mechanical failures in general are one of the most frustrating ways that a driver can get taken out of a race in Formula One. But when you're playing a video game, surely the engine isn't going to falter on your digital car, right? High-performance computers are a lot like high-performance cars. They require constant maintenance, and things are always going wrong. And this is what happens when you're on the bleeding edge of technology. In this case, what happened was I had a bad stick of RAM, which I found out after weeks of troubleshooting. And every time a certain part of that memory was trying to be written to, my entire system would crash, which unfortunately would happen oftentimes after qualifying and before a race. This is the F1 2012-2021 season. Welcome to race number 2, Kuala Lumpur. So following a fantastic qualifying session by Dan, myself, and Nick, with 140 being the best time that we could put up, we unfortunately had to redo the whole thing because you can't just reset into the same positions you were if somebody leaves a race. So we redid it, and there's really only one highlight from the redo of the qualifying, and that's Papa Huey, my dad, setting an incredible time. So as a result, he jumps from 4th place to 1st. CzarPeppers, aka Steven, jumps up to 2nd. I drop to 3rd. Dan, who should have been on the pole position, goes to 4th. He really got done dirty by this. I felt really bad about this, and I put so much effort into troubleshooting my computer to make sure that this didn't happen again, but unfortunately I was plagued by these troubles for weeks before I was finally able to determine what was actually the culprit. So now we're going to get into the race itself. We've got footage from myself, from Steven, and Dan, but unfortunately Dan did a display capture instead of window capture and left his cursor on the screen, so we'll be able to see the mouse the whole time. We've got a very exciting first few turns here. So I take it a little bit wide, but I end up getting a little bit of a kiss from a Lotus there, and then that pushes him to go into Dan, but luckily everybody recovers. Steven manages to steal 1st place from Papa Huey, my dad, and then we're off into the next corner. And as I approach this corner, I end up getting hit pretty nastily from behind, and I end up thinking it's Dan because he apologizes right after that. But if we watch it from his perspective, you're going to see that he didn't actually hit me. He hit my dad, aka Papa Huey, who managed to recover just fine. As you'll notice, he gets right back on the track there. And this next segment is what we call absolute mayhem. And we start racing as if everything is on the line and with no regard to anybody else. Dan doesn't get a penalty for pushing my dad off the track because he doesn't lose any positions. And whoever hit me, I guess we'll never know because I can't see from the footage.
So sorry, guys.
There, I actually just hit Gord, not on purpose though, and I end up apologizing, explaining that it's like the pecking order, you know, where you get pecked by the bigger chicken, so you peck the next chicken in line. And in fairness to Gord, it was absolutely unfair. I didn't do it intentionally, but the results are still the same. I wonder if this is why he switched away from Ferrari for future races. Now we're going to watch Steven for a little bit because unfortunately he had a very uneventful race, having been in 1st place for a lot of it, and without many mistakes. So here, let's watch Steven go around a corner. Very nice. Good work, Steven. Now you're going to see me overtake Nick.
That turn will be your undoing.
And then I decide to quote Worms. At least the only place I've heard this quote is in Worms Armageddon.
Taste my rapier, scoundrel!
Coming up, you're going to want to watch the 2 cars right in the front of me here, as this was one of the most contentious points of the entire race. As you can see, the Red Bull on the left is my dad, and the Mercedes is my brother.
Insane!
And there was a lot of arguments after that as to whether my dad was on the racing line and had the right of way or whether he forced Dan off of the road. So let's watch that from another point of view. So what do you think happened there? Let us know in the comments. Was Dan just going too fast to make that turn regardless? Did my dad force him off the road? What do you think? So while we're all back there bickering and bumping into each other, Steven just keeps putting down nice consistent laps and making no mistakes. Good work, Steven. Unfortunately though, can't say the same for Dan, whose tires are now pretty knackered from all of the skidding, and he ends up wiping out, which is a very frustrating thing for a guy who should have been on the pole position. Meanwhile, I get DRS on my dad, and I use that to overtake him and put myself into second place.
You're keeping up with race pace. Keep pushing.
Can't help but think if we had just started the last race, I would have been first.
And there's Dan just musing about what could have
Wide
been.
there, Pops.
However, my father wiped out in that corner,
You got greedy.
which gave Dan an opportunity to make up a bit of lost time.
Good.
You got greedy, Mark.
Let me earn back some of that time he stole from me.
Unfortunately, though, his victory was going to be short-lived as he was plagued by yet another problem with a spin-out. Poor guy just couldn't catch a break today. Fortunately for him, though, he didn't lose a ton of position. As you can see, CzarPeppers was back there, but only because he had pit. Next up, though, we have Gord, who was then plagued by some bad luck, who ends up crashing once on lap 7, and then again on lap 8,
seconds.
but his re-entry almost takes me out. Luckily, though, I ended up escaping disaster.
I would have deserved that.
I found myself in a very familiar position. I was putting down hot laps that were a second or two faster than the guy in the lead. I had about 5 seconds between me and him. The only difference this time is it was Steven in front of me instead of Dan. All I had to do was not screw up.
right.
Yeah, I did one corner poorly back there. No! No! Ah! Shit.
And just like that,
Keep
poof.
pushing. The car behind
My
may
dreams
struggle
of
to
getting
keep up
first
with the
place
pace,
were gone.
especially if they have to dial
You
their
wipe
engines
out?
down.
Yup. Well, first is not gonna happen, but I'm not gonna lose second. Holy shit.
Looks like someone just ran Kobayashi off the road. I wonder who that was.
Oh.
You can hear my dad getting a little defensive about running
Why was he
Kobayashi off the
re-entering
road,
track
but
then?
as you can tell, Dan watched that happen.
Steven, I had you and I just got on the gas a little too early. That consistency, man. That's all you got to do in first. And you're doing
Yeah,
it.
it really is.
It
Like,
just
you
forces
just-
everyone to push a
Just
little extra.
drive consistent, wait for the other person to drive too hard, and they can stay out.
And with that sage advice from Steven, we're going to have to close this off. I hope you enjoyed watching me clutch defeat from the jaws of victory once again. I know I did one turn poorly back there, but that only created about a 1.5 second gap, which I absolutely could have closed with one more lap, but there was no recovering from a wipeout.
God. Yeah!
A well-earned victory for Steven, who was consistent the whole race, never gave up his lead. I got the second place I deserved,
Alright.
and Dan didn't get any of the success that he deserved. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Join us for the next race in China.